You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 FM and WKDWradio.com. I've got two very, very special guests in the house, and we've had our fair share of internet issues, maybe on my end. But I've got two really cool people in the house tonight. I'm going to let them take the reins here and introduce themselves. Ross, go ahead. You hear me, Ross? So they'll be right back. They're going to pop back in, and they signed out. They're going to come back. But I just left Nashville. A couple things I want to tell you. Great experience. If you've not been back on, I want to say Songwriters Row, basically. The local was fantastic. Uh, Unbelievable food, but the atmosphere was amazing. And there were a lot of things happening behind the scenes in Nashville. Let's see if Ross can hear me now. Ross, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you now.
We got your back. We got your
Awesome.
back.
So I was just telling them about the local, and you guys are playing there tonight, right?
Yes, sir. 8:00. We got some friends that are playing with us. It's a fairly rare thing that we actually get to book people we know in town. Usually you're kind of thrown up on stage, and that's a great way to meet people. And, we every now and then get thrown up on stage with some of our friends. But, yeah, we put together our 8:00 round. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Well, talk about the local for a minute, what it means as a songwriter to get to play on that stage.
It's a really awesome venue, in Nashville. I'm sure anybody that goes will see that there's a lot of tourism in this town. And because of that, there's a lot of places that cater to tourism. And, the local is its name. It's the place where all the local songwriters and the local up and coming artists, and maybe even sometimes established artists, they go play rounds, they go hang out, grab a beer after their day. And it very much has stayed a keystone of the songwriting community in Nashville, for sure.
I did an interview with Jeff, and that's coming up here in a couple of weeks. But it was amazing to really sit down and talk with him and hear the history of what his journey was as a songwriter. And I have the pleasure to have you guys on now and talk about your journey. I want to kind of hit it up from the start. Where are you each from?
Yeah, so I'm from Houston, Texas originally. Technically Katy, Texas, about 30, 45 minutes west of Texas.
I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. Just the middle of Columbia. Nothing special.
Yeah.
Nothing special.
Yeah, so, people from Texas get it. If you say Houston, they're like, you're not really from there. Where are you actually from? So I always have to do my little asterisk.
Fantastic. So how did you guys, we'll start with Ross. Mm-hmm. How did you get started in music and the writing?
I started actually pretty young.
Yep.
I originally started with piano, funny enough. I started when I was about, I think it was 7 years old. And, pretty typical story for a young guy growing up. I got to about 12 or 13, and then the whole girl thing started happening. And I had a friend that had a Sunburst Les Paul and another one that had a black Stratocaster. And I started to piece together that I couldn't play AC/DC on my piano like I wanted to. And that the people I was trying to get the attention of were paying more attention to the guys with guitars than pianos. So I started picking up guitar, and then that sends you down the whole rabbit hole of all the guitar players that have come before you, and you start taking up after them. And then I moved to Belmont and met Mackenzie, and the rest is history.
So Mackenzie, how did you get started?
Yeah, so I originally had trained to go and pursue a career in musical theater. I have a very roundabout story of I grew up with super musical. My mom was a musician for a long time. Grew up in a family that really championed me wanting to do this, which was really cool and is very unique. And that doesn't often happen. A lot of times people are like, no, you can't go, being a musician is not a real job, or being a songwriter is not a real job. And my parents from the jump were like, okay, you want to be in these lessons? Cool. Okay. You want to do this musical? Okay. And that was really cool. And my senior year of high school, I guess I'd always been like in choir and in theater and things like that. And then kind of started writing and playing with a couple of friends in their bands, like high school garage bands, and realized that I didn't want to audition for roles for the rest of my life. I kind of felt like I had things to say and cool things to talk about and to write about. And so I pivoted completely and decided to go to Belmont and pursue that, which was really cool and different, and kind of just landed in country music. I grew up on country music. I grew up on like that Southern rock, swamp rock kind of stuff. And everything from Janis Joplin to ZZ Top to Flatland Cavalry to Turnpike Troubadours, just all over the map. So yeah, kind of just ended up chasing this instead. It was kind of a gut feeling. And I said, okay, I've been doing this whole thing for a really long time, and I'm just going to say, nope, we're going to do this. So
what I find kind of amazing is that, everybody thinks Nashville people are the only participants in Nashville. And, if you go there and you go down Broadway, your whole visit is completely different on the backside. So if you spend your time not on Broadway and you actually go to the local hangouts, talk about that engagement that you guys have there, and why it's so important for people to understand where music actually comes from.
Yeah, I'll take this one.
I think obviously you want to talk about this one. You jumped right at that.
Right. Well, I think that like a lot of times people don't. We have friends that grind on Broadway and do that cover band gigs and the keep my lights on gigs, and like it's such an admirable and dope thing to be doing, and you're honing your skills and you're really cranking it out. But when you're playing down there, it's a different environment. They're more worried about their vodka crayons than what you're singing on stage. Right. Which is fine if that's the environment that you want to get into when you come and visit Nashville. But being able to visit places like the Listening Room, being able to visit places like the Bluebird, the Local, even going as far to go like to Winners and Whiskey Jam and hang out at Red Door, where like you never know who you're going to see, that kind of stuff. I think keeping the beaten path, like keeping people off of the beaten path, but also inviting them in to be like, hey, this is where you hear what is going to be on the radio in 2 years. This is where you hear what's going to change country music in a year, or things like that. It's an inviting thing. And then you show somebody what Nashville is to you, the writer, or you, the musician, not what Nashville is to the bachelorette party and the 21st birthday and the girls' weekend and all that stuff.
Wow, that's the tourism side of everything. Yeah. I met you guys down in Key West at the Songwriters Festival, and we kind of bonded there at Island Dogs. And what I found really cool about you guys is that you're not your typical adventure into Nashville. A lot of people are independent; they come in there by themselves. You guys are kind of teaming up here. What's that like?
It kind of the way that I describe the duo mentality is it's everything that a solo act will have, but in reverse. So solo acts a lot of times feel like they're on their own all the time. They really need to like make time for their friends. They need to make time to, make sure that they're building a life outside of songwriting so that they have things to write about. And with us, it's kind of the opposite. Like naturally being in a duo, we spend so much time practicing and so much time writing together and doing that kind of thing, because with two minds, you have to be in the same place. You can do administrative stuff separately, but when you're writing, you got to write in the same room. We got to practice in the same room, where a lot of people can just pick up and write and play or practice. But so for us, the thing is, instead of trying to get in the room with a lot of people, we always have to kind of take a little bit of a second and say, okay, Mackenzie's been invited to go write with someone else because they really like her thing. She's going to run with that. So it's almost like, I love being in a duo. It's a great dynamic. but it's kind of funny that we bond in the exact 180 degrees that a lot of our solo act friends do.
And I think I think it's one of those things that like we found in the beginning that the rooms we were having the most fun in and the songs we were championing the most were songs we were writing together, just the two of us. Like
right.
our first song we ever wrote together, we weren't even a duo yet. We hadn't even started this like whole adventure. We were just writing together. We'd met in college. And the first song we ever wrote together was this song called Little Bit of Money that's actually out everywhere. And it was so funny because we sat there in this like practice room at Belmont and wrote this song in like an hour and a half and kind of looked at each other like, whoa, like that was cool. And then we kept writing together and finally we're like, so do we want to do this together? And I grew up on Sugarland and Ross grew up on like Lynyrd Skynyrd and all of those like famous bands of that era. And then I grew up just like loving everything from the Chicks to Sugarland and just groups and trios and duos and things like that. And there was something really intriguing, and I still find it intriguing every time we do anything, of like having someone that guaranteed has your back, because like if we're chasing this, like we have to chase it together and we have to be aligned and we have to be on the same page. And if we're not, that's other discussions of like, okay, then what's the pivot? Right. And it's cool to be able to like have somebody to bounce that off of, instead of sometimes in like solo act world, I feel like sometimes you're kind of just screaming into an empty room being like, right. I wonder if this is going to work. Yeah. Whereas like we sometimes, to our fault, always have an opinion about what's going on. So we always have to like make sure that we're chatting about what the vision of MackMartin is, what it looks like, how it's going to evolve, things like that. But it's nice to have like a teammate doing that. And,
after so many years of doing it, you really, my favorite part about it is you really learn to trust the other person's opinion, because you guys get very much on a similar wavelength. You start seeing things very similarly. I mean, just yesterday we were writing with someone, and it was us two and one of our friends in town writing a song, and Mackenzie pitched an idea, and she and the person we were writing with loved it. And I kind of had to sit back and say, I think this is good, but I got to hear what you're saying, because I think you have a better idea. So I think one of my favorite parts is like, you work with someone long enough, you really start to trust their opinion, and you start to, understand that they see things farther sometimes than you do. And so that's a really nice thing that when we talk to our solo friends, they're like, God, that's got to be nice. When you don't have the idea, or you just show up and you didn't have any pitches that day, you got someone else that's just as good as you that can bring just as good of pitches. So,
well, and a couple of things you guys threw in there, and I've the trust factor, and I want to, there's trust, and when you're collaborating with people, it definitely is a trust factor outside of your circle, your two,
right?
So talk about, because I find that in talking with a lot of songwriters that are out there, that outside of Nashville, there seems to be a lot of mistrust in the grand scheme of things. But what I've talked to people about in the room on the show is that you guys are really supportive of each other. You're not really breaking those barriers of mistrust a lot of times, are you?
No. I mean, it's one of those things that like a win for Ross is a win for MackMartin. A win for Mackenzie is a win for MackMartin. Like, right. We both are writers in our own right. And we are both, we both have pursuits that one day maybe won't involve the other, or will involve the other, or will involve the other in a very different capacity. We lots of times joke that like Chris Stapleton and his wife specifically, mm-hmm. like she's on every record. Like mm-hmm. she's on every record. She has cuts with him. She's sang BGVs. She goes on the road sometimes. She doesn't other times. Like there's a role there that she fills when she wants to, and she doesn't when she doesn't. And it's the same thing with like Ashley McBride's most recent record when she did the Welcome to Lindyville. Like John Osborne went and did and produced the whole record and played guitar on it and all these things. And it's like that's not because he doesn't want to do MackMartin, not because he doesn't want to do, John Osborne. You can do MackMartin anytime you would like.
We'd have him.
But anytime you'd like.
100% in.
But no, it's not because he doesn't want to do Brothers Osborne. It's because he wants to do this other thing. It has nothing to do. One doesn't negate the other. And so I think that's something that a lot of times people are like, oh, well, you always do stuff together and things like that. And like, we'll go write for somebody else and some people will come write for us, or Ross will go play this thing and go out of town to go do this songwriter thing with people, or I'll go on a retreat and do this other thing. Like, just because we're in a duo doesn't mean that we're not doing other things. And just because we're doing other things doesn't mean we're not pursuing the duo.
Right. And at the end of the day, you know, we both have moments where we very much like reassure that I trust that she is here because she enjoys music as much as I do, and vice versa. You know, I mean, it's a little bit of a corny answer, but it's true. It's about the music. You know, we're not here because we think that it's just going to package better on TikTok as a duo. There's just a lot of moments where we'll be doing a rehearsal, we'll write a song, and we'll kind of look at each other and we're like, that was sick. You know, so we just kind of have to trust that we see that in each other, and that at the end of the day, like, you know, you get off a stage and you feel good about a show. You trust that the other person is having that same genuine appreciation for making music, not just that they wrote, but making it with someone else that they wrote it with and someone else that they worked on it with. You learn to trust that that's really the reason that we're both here and we're both doing it.
So, you know, as a duo combination, when one of you gets kind of off kilter, I don't want to say down, because I don't ever want to say down, but you may actually say that. I've talked to the songwriters out there that are walking into the room and they're by themselves. Talk about how you guys pick each other up.
I'll go. Okay. I was going to say, I mean, I think yesterday, and I wouldn't necessarily say down yesterday, but I think yesterday is a good example of just kind of the dynamic that it takes on. You know, I wasn't necessarily down, but, you know, Mackenzie came in with this idea that she was really excited about and she'd been thinking about it. And, you know, I came in and, you know, was a little bit like not uninspired, but I just didn't have anything that was selling me at that time. So just kind of that mentality in general of where if you come in and you're not at 100%, you know, it's really easy to have someone else that is as capable as you are to then step up and kind of fill the rest of it. And, you know, after doing it for 4.5 years, you really learn to feel that out in the other person. So, you know, she could tell yesterday, I was waiting on the idea, and it's a great song and I'm really excited about it. But, you know, you kind of learn to see in the other person when you can step up, and the other person learns when to let you sit there and, you know, not be at 100%.
I think, yeah, it's funny you just said the 100% thing. There's a podcast that I listen to pretty frequently, and I remember sending it to Ross when we were like not butting heads, but we were both going through a lot of stuff, just like professionally and personally, and life was insane, and like we felt like we weren't in step, and we usually are really good about that. And it's the kind of thing of like, okay, now it's being very transparent of, okay, I'm showing up and I've got 15%. Do you have 85 or no? Because like we've got to be at 100. But it's nice to be able to say like, hey, I'm showing up today at a ripe 30, like, or hey, I've actually got 90. What do you have? And if we exceed 100, that's fantastic. But like, we always need to make the baseline be like between the two of us, we can show up at 100%. And there are some shows where like I've shown up and been like, you know, I'm checked out. And Ross is like, fantastic. I'm on it.
Ross takes a longer guitar solo for that show. You
like,
know?
Or I'm not doing this thing tonight. I've been sick as a dog. And he's like, okay, fantastic. And he goes and runs and takes the band and like does some crazy thing I've never heard. And then it just comes out of his brain in that moment. And so it's just learning it's the human condition of like learning when to lean. And like learning when to lean on somebody and knowing when to do it, and not and checking your ego and your pride and being like, hey, And I think that's the coolest thing about being in a duo that I tell a lot of people is like, there's not really room for either one of us to develop a pride or an ego, because at the end of the day, if we do it, it's against each other, which is the downfall of the project we're working on.
Right.
That's kind of a cool. Everything you just said is like really great information, not just for a duo, but anybody coming into Nashville, really.
Yeah. It's just like, if you don't lean, like it's community, not competition. Like I've said that for a really long time. And I think a lot of times, specifically like social media makes you think it's competition because it's a numbers game, and it's so it's a form of self-gratification that is just right at your fingertips. And I'm not downing it. Like it's made some things incredibly more accessible, and it's given you an audience at your fingertips. But on the other side, it is, when it's not working for somebody, like it hurts. Like it does not affect the psyche as well as people like to act like it does. And so I say all that to say, like, it's something that we've started to find like a really good crew. And we've been here a hot minute because we went to school here, but we have started to find a really good crew that is like, okay, we can lean here, or like, hey, this I really need to write about this today.
Right.
Like I really need to tap into this. And it's people that like we surround ourselves with in personal circles as well as professional circles. So it's just learning when to lean and learning when to not, and learning like who you can't, be leaned on, and learning who you can't lean on, and be like, okay, like we're just in this professionally or just personally.
How long did it take to learn to lean on people in Nashville?
You know, that's kind of that's an ongoing thing. You know, I mean, you know, as we develop as, you know, musicians and professionally, you know, I mean, like it's, again, Ross has just got all the corny things today. You never stop learning.
Yep.
You know, it never completely ends like, oh, I've fully learned how to do this. But, you know, like Mackenzie said, you know, you find your circle, you find your people, you find the people that you can count on, and that, you know, like I was saying about our duo, it's kind of the same thing with your circle in Nashville. You find the people, and we have people in town that, you know, I am as much a friend of them as I am just absolutely their fan. Like I want to see 100%. Them at Nissan. I want to see them at Bridgestone, because I will pay $500 to be floor seats for the person I went to school with. So, you know, you learn to kind of do the same thing. You learn to lean on people in Nashville when you find people like that just make it fun, make it enjoyable, and just don't let you forget why you came to Nashville to start writing songs.
Yeah, it's just, and it's really easy to watch good people win.
Yeah.
It's really easy to watch people that were kind to you succeed, people that believed in you, that came to the empty bar, that played there used to be a place called Belcourt Taps that, and like Belcourt Taps was the first ever MackMartin round.
Yep.
Like, and there are people that we still are friends with, still talk to, are cutting songs like with, things like that we met at that dive little bar, like dinky little place. And so I say all that to say, like, again, me and my podcast, we were listening to a podcast the other day, and it was Steven Spielberg. And it's funny that you think someone that's like the greatest of all time wouldn't lean on anybody. Like you'd be like, no, he doesn't ask people for their advice. He doesn't anything. And he was getting film advice and editing advice and coloring advice and all those things from Star Wars.
George Lucas.
From George Lucas back in the day. Like they still sometimes like just riff off each other and see like, hey, will you watch this thing right quick? I want to know what you think about this. And it's like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg still ask each other for advice. Like we can ask each other for advice in the back of Belcourt Taps.
Right.
Like this is what that is. Like that's what makes people great, is building off of information of people that you admire and you're a fan of.
For sure.
You know, you've mentioned Belcourt Taps multiple times, and I've, over the last 7 years going to Songwriters Festival, Rose has been down to Songwriters Festival. And one of my favorite stories about Rose, and I had never been to her place. I was in Nashville twice now in the last couple of weeks, and I've wanted to go by, but I've gotten so entangled and so driven into Nashville, into the heart of Nashville, and to the heart of songwriters. And I had an opportunity to have lunch with her. One of my favorite stories about her, though, is a few years back, she wasn't well, and they said she wasn't coming. And we were all at Island Dogs and kind of talking about her and quietly just missing her. And when she walked in and stayed for a while, I get chills right now. That place went nuts. It's amazing the impact that the Roses have, that the Jeffs have at the local, and the commitment that they put forth not just them, but you've got Thomas out at the Smyrna location, and Thomas has a Front Street pub, and what's amazing to me is everybody's trying to bring people together with the songwriter mentality and really trying to grow this. But the cool stories are those bars that you were in that you started out.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And what did that bar, that scene, what did that mean to you guys?
I mean, like I live actually right down the street from where Belcourt Tap was. Now it's now a dumpling house, unfortunately.
We haven't been yet. It's
yeah,
too raw.
I refuse to go.
It's too not the dumplings are not raw, but the feelings are too raw. Going to what used to be Belcourt Taps.
I think it speaks for itself when there was a 4-night goodbye hosted by a promoter in town, and it was anyone and everyone that wanted to play played. And we're not talking like people that had just moved town, things like there were some pretty big names on these lineups, some pretty big people that had pub deals and record deals and had just gone off the road with this person and whatever. And it was 4 nights, and by nights, I mean, it started at noon and went to about 3:00 in the morning, and there was a round every hour. And like, that wasn't even enough days. There's still people that are like, oh my God, y'all got to play one of the last days at Belcourt. And I'm like, yeah, like we played, I think the 3rd to last day of Belcourt Taps. And it was one of those things that like, until the lights went out that last night, like it was wall to wall. It was insane. It was insane. And it was like, you saw people that you hadn't seen in years, and you saw people that you didn't even know had a connection with Belcourt Taps, that you're like, oh, that's this person that wrote this #1 hit. Or that's this person that, and it's wild to think about. I have chills talking about it. Like, it's wild to think about rooms you're in Nashville and like what has happened in them. Like, it's another example is like Ward Gunther and Whiskey Jam. Like when you look back at pictures of like who we now know as Chris, we always knew as Chris Stapleton, but now we know as like Chris Stapleton, like he was playing to like nobody.
Didn't even
like,
have his hat
Luke
on.
Luke Combs was playing to like nobody. And now they're like these legacy acts that like will go in history and like be in the Country Music Hall of Fame and like be inducted in all these things. And, you know, it's just wild to think about like the spaces in Nashville and like the memories and feelings they hold.
Yeah. And to answer your question, I'll answer it with something that, you know, people back home always have to remind me of, which is, you know, you ask like, what does that mean to us? For me, it's always like a reminder that this is where it happens. Because when we go home, like if we go play a show in Texas or if we go play a show in South Carolina, everybody wants to know, like, have you run into anybody in the bar? Who do you get to play with? What kind of stuff are you and your friends doing? And when I sit in there and think about it, I start to think about, like Mackenzie saying, like all the hit songwriters that I bump into on a Thursday. And it's totally normal. I mean, John, you know, you've been to the Key West Songwriters Fest. It's like, those bars to me are a reminder that it's not as far away as you think it is. Because a lot of times from other towns or maybe just in Nashville, looking at your phone, you think that these people in these events are like superhuman. You think that it's just unattainable sometimes because it feels so far. But you go to these places, you hear a dude get up on stage and play the song that's #1 on radio, and you're like, it's not that far. It's right there. So to me, and I'm, you know, sure, to Mackenzie and a lot of our peers, it's just kind of a reminder that it really just is right in front of your face in Nashville.
Well, and I'm going to say this, you know, the other night in the local, I listened to the rounds, and it's amazing when you have an appreciation, a true appreciation of the ability in songwriting, whether it's perfectly pitched or not, where that song was developed, where it came from, and the story behind that. Man, I almost think sometimes it's better than the record that was cut.
Oh yeah.
We
talk about that.
We joke all the time that like we'll hear songwriters play their version of the #1 hit on country radio or this massive cut from somebody, and all you want is like the voice memo of their version.
Yeah, I want the songwriter's version.
Like I want yours.
They sing it different.
there's a writer in town, and his name escapes me right now, but he wrote Miss Me More, Kelsey Ballerini. He was in Evanescence, David Hodges. And David Hodges has this thing. It's 3 EPs of songs he's written. And they're all over the map. It's like Crush, David Archuleta, Miss Me More, Kelsey Ballerini, Bring Me to Life, Evanescence. Like he has like cuts across the board, across genre. And I can't listen to the others now. Yeah. Like I can't listen to the record that I learned about David Hodges from, because now I'm listening to the songwriter put out these acoustic, just him and a guitar, like 9 songs. And I'm like, I'm in love with this version. Like, cause I can feel that you feel it. There's people that love a song and like cut a song because they love a song. And I think that's so awesome to be able to do. But then you hear the person that's brain it came from and that put it into the room and brought it to life. And you're like, whoa, you felt that. Yeah. Like you went through that, which is a really cool thing to get to experience and to allow each other into that, and allow strangers into that every single night when we go play or just go watch, to be able to say like, whoa, we saw that happen. That was cool.
So I'm going to stay in that emotion moment, because there has to be, with you guys, when you're doing these things in the writer's room, how do you control that emotion, or do you let it take you down that path?
You know, I think control is probably not the right word, but something that I use all the time when talking about this is, back to the podcast. I was hearing someone talk about how, you know, as a songwriter, your influences and your emotions and your inspirations are like waves to a surfer. You can't control when the waves come or where they come from, but you can control which ones you ride. So to answer your question, I would say it's not really about controlling. It's more so about when you get one you think you want to go with, you write it. You know, maybe you don't go out one night, you sit in your room, you play your guitar, you write a couple lyrics, you record some stuff, and you take it into a room later, or you finish the song right then and there while you're thinking about it. Or if it's something, you know, you might want to just put in your back pocket, maybe you let it pass that day and you come back to it later. So it's just kind of learning to, and you know, that's the thing, is writing the next song that we'll write was like writing the first one that we wrote. It doesn't really ever get any easier. You just kind of learn yourself enough to know when you're onto something, and you just focus on that.
Well, I think too, like we're going to play a song later in this that is really important to us and like has opened a lot of doors and done a lot of cool things. But it was a write where we all walked in with a very similar feeling, not knowing. Obviously, Ross and I knew how one another were feeling because it was something that Ross had personally gone through, but we didn't know that the other writer, that's how she was feeling or things like that. We didn't know the importance of that week. And we'll tell the full story, obviously, before we play it. But it was one of those things that then the song wrote itself in about an hour 15. Yeah. And it's the song that got us into the Bluebird. It's the song that is like put us in rooms with people that we would have probably not been in rooms with, but probably a little bit slower to be in rooms with. And it's changed a lot of the trajectory of our path and what we're doing. So yeah, I think needless to say, if the emotion is there, there's a spark that you feel and you know, and when you know, like as cheesy as that sounds, and like when you want to chase it, you chase it. And sometimes there's like yesterday in our write, it was Ross was like, I hear the idea. I think it's a very good idea. I don't know where this is going quite yet. So like y'all run with it because you do. And then by the end, he was like, okay, this is really cool. I like this a lot. And it was one of those moments. And there are other times where like everybody locks in and it's like, buckle up, here we go. So
I'm actually gonna do something different. I didn't prep you for this, and I just thought of this right now. I think what you guys have been describing, you guys do every night. You're gonna do it tonight, and at the local. But I want you to pick 3 songs, but I want you to let everyone know what a songwriter's round is like. So you take turns, but you're just going to do 3 songs, and you're going to do it like you're at a songwriter's round, like tonight. At the local. So I'm going to give you the full screen and let you kind of show everyone what Songwriters Rounds are like when you go and listen.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love that.
Awesome. So I'm going to pull you up on the screen, and it's all yours.
So this first song we wrote with our dear friend Miss Tori Grace, and this is the song I was just kind of talking about. Of we all walked in the room that day, and Ross had unfortunately just lost his granddad super suddenly, and I had not lost mine yet. And Tori, it was like the anniversary of her losing her granddad, and we all sat there, and Tori pitched this idea, and she was like, I have this idea of like, you can have him because he was good to me and he was these things. And I kind of sat back and I looked at her, I go, I think you're almost angry. I think there's a little bit of okay, let's play ball, God. If you want to take him, you better have all these things. And my granddad ended up passing away about almost a year to the T after writing it. So it's been this really cool full circle thing. Got us into the Bluebird, has opened a lot of doors. And yeah, so this is coming out later this year. And this is called You Can Have Him. So I hope you like it. Will there be a lazy boy to sit in a Panasonic in his kitchen, where he can read the morning paper and listen to blues? Will his Bible collect sawdust? Will he get to fix that Ford truck next to all the other projects he never got to? Will you call him every day like I do? I'll make you a deal. We can figure this thing out. He can be the man I know, not the one he is right now. On the other side of that holy horizon, if the sun's always shining and you promise to give him everything we had, then you can have it. Will his home team always win with a walk-off in the ninth, and put a lake out his back door to go fishing every night, and put a picture of my grandma on his bedside table too? 'Cause I know that he'll be missing her till she gets to you. I'll make you a deal. We can figure this thing out. We can be a man I know, not the one he is right now. On the other side of that holy horizon, if the sun's always shining and you promise to give him everything we had, then you can have him. He spent all our days together telling me about you. So make sure he sees all my years, not just 22. And I'll make you a deal. We can figure this thing out. If he can be the man I know, not the one he is right now. On the other side of that holy horizon, if the sun's always shining and you promise to give him everything we had, then oh, and all his days are better than this one we're having. You can have him. You can have him. So yeah, that was that song.
John, you wanted the real experience, you're getting it. I got a tune right in front of you.
But I think we're gonna play all the notes. Yeah, a little. Ross, you want to intro this one?
Yeah, I gotta stop playing. I'm working on right now. I can play, I can talk, but I'm working on playing and talking. So I'm just gonna talk right now. But this song, you know, I think every good country act has a murder ballad. And if you're a country music fan, you'll find out pretty quickly that there's two kinds of women. There's those that love their man and those that just murdered their man. And this ain't a song about a woman that loves her man.
The neighbor was supposed to pick them both up for church. Sunday morning, he was laying on that horn. Saw the grass, it hadn't been cut. The home phone ain't picking up, no. Salon is buzzing, cutting heads on Thursday night. All them talking, someone said they heard a fight. And she walks in, they hush, don't go singing too much. All they know is that porch light ain't been on for a week or so. All they know is there's a bar tab open, a back door that hasn't been closed. All they know is someone's done something and somebody's going to hell. All we know is no one ever tells. All they know. The hold-on table wasn't helping his debts get paid. And she don't know who he was seeing every Saturday. While she was taking extra shifts, trying to make up for him. All they know is that sheriff's been taking laps on Denison Street. All they know is there's a Bible in the shed where a rifle used to be. All they know is someone's done something and somebody's going to hell. All we know is no one ever tells. All they know. And the next door neighbors swore they heard a window crash. And it's not Tuesday, she already put out the trash. The whole town knew he'd picked too many fights to stay. So if he was gonna leave, he was gonna leave her way. All they know is there's H in the backseat, blood in the bed of the truck. All they know, it ain't raining weeds, but the white walls are covered in mud. All they know is someone's done something and somebody's going to hell. All we know is no one ever tells. All they know. All they know. So there's that one. I always feel funny playing You Can Have 'Em about our dead granddads. And then you're like, and this is a murder song. But not about that guy. Anyways, pacing. But yeah, so this last one is a song that's going to be the first single off this little acoustic project that we're putting out. We just actually finalized the artwork for it and everything. So fingers crossed we start to get that ball rolling. And yeah, we wrote this song, just the two of us. And sometimes it's nice to go back to those roots, like we were talking about earlier, of the first song we ever wrote together is what made us fall into being a duo and becoming MackMartin. And yeah, so this next song, if you know the woman this is about, I'm sorry or you're welcome, but that's for you to decide. So this is called Chaos and Camo. Hope you like it. She's a bad mama jamma, hot as South Alabama, ain't afraid to show her skin or tattoo. Picks a Harley like a daddy, so you better come ready or she'll ride into the sun without you. Field party on a Friday night till the bottom of the bottle's bone dry. A glance as she strolls on by leaves you buzzing like a neon light. She's everything you ever dreamed of and everything your mama ain't. She got a street cred on a back road, gets a Colt 45 from the Texaco, knows how to take a Mustang for a ride, Sally, ride. Give you the bird or give you the gospel, but she didn't peak in high school, and she can hand load her ammo. She's chaos and camo. Got an old 4-bench cedar, and man, you ought to see her shop rag hanging off of her hips. She's a preacher's problem, a southern rock bottom, rolling around with them cherry red lips. At the range, she's 10 for 10. Watch your ass, cause she don't miss. Packs a lip every now and then, ain't afraid of showing skin when she dips. She's everything you ever dreamed of and everything your mama ain't. She got a street cred on a back road, gets some Colt 45s from the Texaco, knows how to take a Mustang for a ride, Sally, ride. Give you the bird or give you the gospel, but she didn't peak in high school, and she can handle load her ammo. She's chaos and camo. Gets a Colt 45 from the Texaco, knows how to take a Mustang for a ride, Sally, ride. Give you the bird or give you the gospel, but she didn't peak in high school, and she can hand load her ammo. She's chaos and camo. She's chaos. She's chaos.
Not right now.
Well, there that is. Just like that.
Fantastic. Oops. Fantastic. I did a little flip there, but I've got somebody really special in the house. This is Ellie. This is my granddaughter.
Hi, Ellie.
Say hi to her. Look in the camera.
Hi to her.
Hi to her right there. Say hi, Mackenzie.
Hi, Mackenzie.
Hi.
So I had her in the room while you were playing that round, and I came up with this little game with her, and I want to see if she's a good enough actress to pull it off. Are you ready? Now look in the camera. Listen to Songwriters Souls. What are you going to tell them?
Listen to Songwriters Souls.
Yeah. So at 5, we're doing some training. So I told her, I said, listen, the big thing is when you go to Nashville and you do songwriting, you've got to play different instruments. You've got to do different things. where's your flexibility come in with what you guys are doing as a duo?
Songwriters Souls.
She's already taking your job. She's taking your job.
She's 100% going to plug this show. But where do you guys plug yourself in? Like, do you produce? Do you do other things, or is it strictly perform and write?
You know, I think our biggest thing is songwriting. You know, that's what we came here to do, and you know, that's one of the benefits. Like Mackenzie was saying, that's one of the benefits of a duo. You know, a win for me, a good room to be in for me is a good room to be in for MackMartin, and a good room to be in for her is a good room to be in for MackMartin. And you know, I say we plug ourselves mainly in that. You know, pursuing MackMartin. That's our main pursuit is, you know, doing the duo. But you know, in Nashville, you got to diversify. Got to do as much as you can do. So we do as much as we can to get in any room that we can get in.
Yeah,
so.
And I think whether that's Ross going to play, I mean, as you can tell, Ross is a phenomenal guitar player, and I think it's one of those things that, like, if Ross is asked to go play guitar, he goes and plays guitar for somebody on a session or a demo or things like that. Or if I'm asked to go lay down a work tape of 3 guys wrote a chick song, and hey, can you come sing this demo? Okay, like there's things that we're always going to do to champion ourselves, because if we're not solid with the musicians we are as individuals, like MackMartin will never work. And so I think that's something that we always champion for each other. Like we had a song come out recently for somebody that we wrote with the artist, and they ended up putting it out that it's just so not our genre and not in our world. And I have a song that just got cut for a friend of ours that I was a writer on, and Ross is getting a cut with a friend of his that he was a writer with. And so it's like those kind of things of, we don't always have to be together to be working for MackMartin and to be working towards MackMartin. I think that's the common misconception, is that we've got hands in all these different pots, and it's obviously working a little bit. I would like to think.
And you know, everybody thinks, well, you just had a moment with your granddaughter. I did have a moment with my granddaughter, and I loved it. But that interruption that happens with you guys all the time. How do you deal with that and get yourself back on track?
Do you mean like in a show, or do you mean just kind of bigger picture?
I think it can be both.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you know, circle back to an answer that we gave earlier. You know, the biggest thing is, like, we want to be here, we want to make music. You know, it's, you know, you have stuff like that. Everyone's going to have a personal life that comes up, whether it's for the improvement or the detriment of your career. You know, everyone has stuff come up like that. But, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, you want to get technical right now. This isn't my career. You know, this is what I'm pursuing. This is what Mackenzie's pursuing. And that means at the end of the day, we do it because we love it. We do it because we want to be here. You know, at any point we could say, you know what, we've had enough. We scratched the itch. We moved to Nashville. So every day that we, you know, choose to do it, every day we're here, we're choosing to do it. So that makes it pretty easy to kind of put down what you have to do to show up and do it, because, you know, it's where you want to be.
Yeah. And I think the other side is that, like, that's life. Like, if you think that it's just going to be the perfect show every time, or the perfect write every time, or I'll speak on my behalf and maybe a little bit for Ross, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know in the beginning, like when I first moved to town and was starting to write and starting to play and things like that, I was like, I would get really bummed if something went wrong, or I'd get really bummed if, like, we didn't finish the write, and like we like got 3-4 hours in and everyone was like, we're just beating our heads against the wall, or things like that. And it's like, if you had a perfect write every day and a perfect show every time, why would this be fun? Like, why would this be worth it? And like, why? Right. It's that one perfect song where you're like, dang, okay, yeah, there it is. Let's go. And that's not to say that it's not possible to have 6 writes in a week and 5 of them are bangers and like number ones, but
that's a great week.
But
that's a really good week.
Ashley Gorley was us at one point.
Right.
And Hardy was us at one point. Ernest was us at one point. And like, Shane McAnally was us at one point. And it's just funny because like Nicole Gallion, like all of them were all at one point in our shoes where it was like, golly, we're working a job, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're just trying to write the dang song. And I don't know, I think it's one of those things that what makes life beautiful and what makes being a musician beautiful and makes just like humanity beautiful is all the moments in between. And I think that's what, like, being a songwriter, that's what you're cherishing. You're trying to make somebody feel the moment in between and see that and understand that. So it'd be rude of us as creatives and songwriters to ignore those like imperfect moments and those interruptions, because sometimes it's the interruption that like you chase down the rabbit hole and you end up with a song that's just amazing. Like, I'm sure Ross's grandfather passing away was an unwelcome.
I'd call that an interruption.
Yeah, unwelcomed interruption, wildly out of nowhere, and then we ended up with a song that like will forever be probably our favorite song we've ever written.
Yeah,
because of the meaning and the weight behind it. So,
well, you guys are the essence of why Songwriters Souls is called Songwriters Souls. I actually explained that the other day to somebody. I think it was Ralston asked me, where'd you come up with it? And, it's hanging around you guys. And I spent a little bit of time with you guys and kind of dumped some of my soul into conversation with you guys. And what I found was like instant friendship.
Absolutely.
And I truly admire the fact that you guys are doing this stuff, and you're really, I'm going to call it a double grind. You're grinding at work, and you've got a career at work, and then you're grinding the everyday writing and playing and performing. Those are two different grinds, two different ways of dealing with stress in your life that I think other people need to hear out loud. You're not able to survive just writing songs and getting them out.
I take double grind. I like that. I'm going to start telling people I do that. I'm a double grinder. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I joke all the time that like people ask, what do you do? And like, I used to kind of bashfully answer, oh, I'm a writer and musician, because we don't have a pub deal. We don't have a record deal. We don't have some funding from some random human that just believes in us. Like, we don't have that, and that's okay. I am so happy that people do have that and that good people win, like I said earlier. But I joke that when someone asks, I'm like, what do I do, or what do I do to keep my lights on? And it's like, there's a very large difference. What I do is I'm a musician and a songwriter. That is my goal in life. That is my career. That is what I will succeed at, and that is what Ross will succeed at. And that's what we've chipped away at and pursued now for quite a few years. And what I do to pay my rent is this, like, so there's a difference there. And I think hard work pays off. And I think it's something that's really admirable, and not to be like, we're great. That's not what I'm saying at all. But like, it's admirable to chase both. As Ross's dad says, you have 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah.
And it's some days you're like, oh my God, I would like 0 full-time jobs. I would like to go sit somewhere in a foreign country where no one knows my name and take $100 and exist.
Right.
Whereas other days I'm like, I love this. Like, this is awesome.
Yep. So, I really appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to spend it on Songwriters Souls, and I thank you immensely.
Thank you for having me.
Well, and I'm doing some really cool things. I'll give you a quick update so I can tell everybody else. The trip into Nashville this time, I actually did a lot of filming at the local. Jeff, I did an interview with Jeff, which I still get chills about the whole challenge of trying to. You guys are breaking down barriers in the songwriting world, and I want to break down the walls that stop people from listening to real music. And the real music isn't when you turn on your radio. The real music is, the fact that, you've got, I think it's Sobro, that I'm correct in that, right? With Ralston?
Yeah, Radio
Sobro, yeah.
Radio Sobro. Honest to God, I listened to that. If you haven't got it on your phone, you should get it on your phone. You will not resubscribed to Sirius XM. It is phenomenal to listen to. The sound quality is amazing, and you get to hear what you don't get to hear,
Right.
and that's that's really cool.
Yeah, they championed us really hard when we put our first two singles out there last year, and Ralston Wells and all them, and they just
Yeah, 100%.
they just championed us in a way that it was just kind, and like I don't know how else to explain it, and the things they had to say when they introduced the song the day it came out, and the way that they spoke about us, and it was a moment of like, okay, cool, this is working.
Yeah.
Like let's keep pushing. So
Well, that little
radio
plug,
was awesome.
that little plug there is the reason why a lot of people keep grinding. Is
100%.
another outlet out there, you know? And what does that feel like when you're writing and you really don't have that outlet, but then you got Radio Sobro, that is an app that really anybody can have and listen to, and then you get that push. What does that feel like to you?
I mean, that, that just kind of feels like what you came here to try to find, and like Mackenzie was saying about social media, there's so many great things about social media. It lets people reach each other from a long way away. We have connections to our favorite artists now that you would never have before, but at the same time, that creates a lot of noise. And what that means is that for, people in our shoes, because, we're not the only ones in Nashville that are trying to, claw up and climb up the ladder and get recognized by a pub deal. And I know that, when I say this, that we're speaking for a lot of people in Nashville that think this about things like Radio Sobro or Songwriters Souls. But to get something that has a little bit more reach than you do is kind of just what you're chasing, because there's so much noise today.
Yep.
And it's so hard to generate it yourself. Even the big names, they have album cycles for a reason, because they can't keep the noise up 24/7. They have to let it go a little bit, let other people make noise, and then come back. So
Right.
When you're a small time artist, when you're an independent artist, and you get someone that's got a little bit more reach than you, that'll kind of lift you up a little bit like that, that just makes it feel like Mackenzie was saying, like it feels like it's working. That's kind of what you're searching for the whole time.
Sure. And Mackenzie, anything to add into that?
Yeah, no, I just think it's one of those things that you spend a lot of time throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks. And every once in a while, when it sticks, it's so, one, it's never the thing you thought was going to stick, and
Right.
two, and
Right.
two, it is this moment of like when you turn around, and I'm a big visual person. I joke that like my brain plays in like little short films, and when you turn around and you see that it's stuck on the wall, and you look behind you and like, oh my God, do you see that it's stuck? And you see the people that are standing there that waited for it to stick. That's like the Radio Sobros. That's like the Songwriters Souls. That's like the friends that we've known since college that we are still writing and playing with and things like that have championed us since the beginning, and have championed us in ways that we sometimes forget to champion ourselves. So I think that's the main thing is surrounding yourself with those people that not only can help you, but not because they can help you, because they wanted to help you, if that makes sense.
That's 110%.
Yeah.
Accurate. I had this conversation today on the phone coming from Nashville up into Columbus, and when you handle yourself with professionalism and you handle yourself with self-pride. I talked to a couple artists who said that anytime that they get on stage, they make sure that their craft is on display, and
Right.
that they don't half do it. And you kind of talked about that, Mackenzie, with when you don't feel it, shift it off and let that take off through your partner,
Right.
So all these pieces that your journey has been about. That's what this show is about, is trying to tell people out there,
Right.
take a deep breath,
Yeah.
realize that nothing happens overnight, and it's truly not against you at any point. You
No.
just have to work through, I guess, slinging the mud on the wall.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I think Ross has a family friend that he always tells a story about being a musician and the different nights. I don't want to do it for you if you.
Oh, yeah,
This is
yeah.
just
I know
what
exactly
he's
what you're
talking
saying.
about, so I want to make sure I
I
don't
totally like
ruin
that.
it. Yeah, this is my night. I get one.
Oh, yeah. Kind of to circle back to your question about, like, what does it feel like? I have a family friend that was, in the music industry, and he found some pretty big success. And his way of saying it was that every day at the job for you is someone's night of their life, because they're showing up and they're, maybe they came to Nashville and they went to the Grand Ole Opry and you guys happened to be playing it, or they came to Nashville and they went to see a show and you got to open for so and so. When you get these programs that have believed in you and are trying to lift you up and trying to help you get to the point, it helps kind of break through that monotony that he's talking about.
Right.
It's very easy to feel like, oh, I'm just here, I'm just going through the motions. And when you have people like you and Ralston that want to lift people up, it helps you break through that monotony.
Yeah, and I think it's the sentiment of when, like I said that to say, like, the showing up comment of, like, if I can't show up at 20, if I show up at 25 and Ross has to be 75, you still have to remember as a unit that this could be someone's first time seeing live music. This could be someone's first time seeing a show. This could be someone's first time being in Nashville, or seeing this festival we're playing in Texas, or this thing we're playing in South Carolina, or it could be someone just lost their granddad and we play that song, or things like that. And it's like remembering that songwriting is about the human connection, and that's really the gist. And being able to show up for others as well as ourselves as writers is such a cool experience.
That's awesome. Well, we've gone over, and I know you guys have got to go play. So I want you to enjoy yourself at the local tonight and play your hearts out. I know you will. And thank you so much for being part of the show.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having
John.
us.
And I'll definitely, when I come back through Nashville, I'll text you ahead of time, and maybe you're not in the grind when I text you, and maybe we can catch up.
That's the goal.
Absolutely.
That's the goal.
Yeah, that is the goal. So thanks a lot for being part of the show. I appreciate you guys. And you're listening to the WKDW Radio and Songwriters Souls, and really follow these guys. Give your social media real quick.
Yeah, so it's Mac like the truck, Martin like the guitar. So it's MackMartin, MackMartin, all one word. You can find it everywhere on social media. It's just like that. So.
All right, and follow Songwriter Souls. We're trying to build this network and
Absolutely.
give these guys a great platform to circle back through next year and really highlight what they're doing. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks,
All right.
John.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you. Thank you so much.